Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:55 a.m. We're moving on with the interviews, and another sore point, or an eyesore rather, in Gauteng, Johannesburg particularly, is the issue around illegal dumping. And I just can't believe it. Just drive through Mayfair and Fordsburg. It is unbelievable. And I'm kind of wondering what has brought us to this point. Never mind Mayfair and Fordsburg, just anywhere, any open space that you pass by in the greater Gauteng area, there seems to be dumping and rubbish and litter all around. Let's talk with Councillor Mohammed Alex Christians. He's the Ward 58 councillor, and nice talking with him this morning about this issue. I hope and pray the reason we have him on air is he's going to give us some good news, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam. Jazakallah for having me, Julie. Just to correct you, I did not stand in the last election for the ward, for Ward
Oh,
58, but I am a DA councillor in the city of Johannesburg.
okay. I think we've got the old information on you from the last time that we spoke.
Indeed.
Nice to have you, and nice to hear that you are still involved in local politics. And I do know that when we spoke with you previously, you were very, very active. So, inshallah, this time around, you're going to be sharing equally good news with us. What do you and your party make of the dump site that we here in Johannesburg have become? And the reasons,
Jazakallah.
obviously, the big issue is the reasons for us getting to this terrible, to this point.
Jazakallah for that. So, as you recall, when I was the ward councillor in Ward 58, which covers Fordsburg, Mayfair, I started to implement with the department an audit into the households and the businesses in Fordsburg and Mayfair, because what we found was that even though the city would clean up 2 to 3 times a day, there would still be dirt on the streets. Some of the while they still do it, they haven't completed the audit, because I checked this morning with the officials. They are still continuing with it because it's quite a number of properties, and including the illegal shacks that are behind some of these properties, which we don't see from the front of the properties that are being done. What we found is that many of them are occupied, some of them illegally, some of them legally, but without proper development planning processes being followed. And that then leads to pick it up not knowing how many households are actually on a property. The residents that are renting those properties, many of them are afraid to come forward to pick it up because majority of them actually are illegal residents who are just occupying these back rooms, and therefore cannot go to pick it up to apply for bins. So what they do is when they speak to their landlords, the landlord says, no, no, there's nothing we can do, because they're not willing to pay that extra for the extra bins. So that is what the audit is picking up at the moment. It's inconclusive, but that is what we have. But I did speak to the MMC, Michael's son, before I came online, and what he has told me is quite good news. They have purchased 41 trucks that would be dealing with illegal dumping. So he is going to forward on to me, and I'll forward it on to you, the contact number for areas that are where we find lots of dumping happening. He's also communicated with JMPD, and they're in the process of getting, I think, an additional 60 JMPD officers who will be walking the streets of the inner city, and hopefully Fordsburg is included, which I fought very hard for that as part of the inner city project, where they will be physically going and finding shop owners and residents with their landlords for illegal dumping. So that is some of the good news coming through. When I spoke to pick it up, unfortunately, there was not much political will in this term of office to get the third shift in place for Fordsburg. But after you contacted me, I have started putting pressure on them so that they can include a third shift in Fordsburg and Mayfair.
Mohammed, obviously, this is a much bigger problem than we actually realize. because it's not only, I think this problem not only affects or impacts Fordsburg and Mayfair, it's throughout Gauteng, the suburb that I live in as well. We've noticed that where we have, here and there, certain streets have um, open stands, people have bought the plot of land and they haven't started developing yet, houses, etc. We find that in the dead of night or whenever people are out at work, you get a lot of people coming to dump on these open stands. On my way to work here this morning, well, not only this morning, I've observed this for a very, very long time. We, as you know, are based in Robertsham. On my way here, when I pass, there's a golf course opposite the F&B Stadium, and making my way through, passing that, that golf course, that area is absolutely littered with illegal dumping as well. These are just some of the areas that I have noticed. The other thing I've noticed was on Hendrik Potgieter, going towards the West Strand. Believe it or not, you need to go out and have a look. On the one side is Hendrik Potgieter running, west and into the city. On the other side is there's a small island separating Hendrik Potgieter from the highway. And on this small verge of land where grass has been growing in the front, I had a shock of my life. I've just noticed on the weekend, dumping has been happening there. Now, those two are very, very busy roads. Where and how have people managed to dump on this very, very busy thoroughfare? And it's really and truly cause for concern. A very long time ago, I spoke to, at the time, I can't remember his name, but I think he was MMC for, I think it was infrastructure and development. And we spoke about landfills, and we spoke about, well, landfills are not being available for us here in Johannesburg. All the areas have been utilized. So that, of course, is another issue, is it not?
Julie, landfill sites are an issue in terms of their lifespan, and we are reaching the end of lifespan for many of them. But we are looking to see other means on how we can actually deal with recycling of this phenomenon where we are running out of land. But let me come to the issue about the illegal dumping. Now, this is where the former Michael Son, who's now infrastructure, I think you were talking about Nico Diago, who came on when
Oh,
he
yes,
was
that's
still
right.
the MMP.
Absolutely.
Yes, so he was looking at that, and he's now sitting in province, and he's still trying to assist us to see from a Gauteng perspective, how can we look at the outlying areas of, for instance, the West Strand, Midvaal, those sort of areas where there is land available for us, and the reduction of cost to get it there. So what we're finding is that there's many people, especially around the construction sites, who tend to get trucks to load up, and they don't want to pay the fee to go and dump them at our loading sites where you can go, because there's a fee per kg that you got to pay. So what they do is they wait for the 1 or 2 in the morning, and they choose any space where they will just go and offload it. So they make the money, even though the people are paying them to go and dump it legally, they're keeping the money to make extra money for that. So that is one of the things that Michael Son has been speaking to JMPD about, and the MMC for safety and security, about increasing the numbers, especially around those hours as well, to catch these criminals. But we also had, when Michael Son was the MMC for safety and security, the hotline for illegal dumping. That is still active. We find many people don't use it because they do not see people being fined, but it is
Hmm.
happening in the background. What they do is, if you got a registration number of a vehicle, you send that number through. They will not go directly to that person and inform them that you've told them. They do it anonymously. And if they cannot find the person, they do track down the rates details of of those people, and then track them down that way. So people have been fined. I can recall regularly used to run December blitzes with JMPD, where we used to walk the streets in the evenings, and we picked up a number of shop owners dumping when they close shop at about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and not realizing that we're driving around now with JMPD. We physically went and fined them up to 5,000 Rand. And it did make a difference because those owners of the shops then went to the owner of the building to say, JMPD's fined us. We were told we need at least 2 bins. You've only given us 5 bins for 10 shops. And that is why it's overflowing and we go and dump, especially around the Fordsburg Square area. And they've now put pressure on their landowners to get more bins, and some of them have even gone out and bought bins for themselves, so they don't get that 5,000 Rand fine. So it started working, and when I spoke to Ernest from Pick It Up today, they are still willing to continue with the giving out the Pick It Up packets to the traders on the streets as well as shop owners, so that they can actually put it into the bags, and they will then tell them which days they will be able to come through or hours in the day outside of the cleaning shifts to come and pick up those packets as well. So that is something that we will hopefully will be able to do with MMC Sun before we hit the deadly part of 15th of December, where we find
Oh,
more dumping happening and the stench that goes with it.
okay, you've partly answered my next question. I was going to talk about the culpability of street traders. And, they're there to make a decent, honest living because they can't be employed otherwise. But they also have their challenges. But you have indicated that you do give them refuse bags to get rid of all of their litter. Is that working? Because it's not only in the Fordsburg area, but it's also in the inner city, in the CBD. I mean, they are lined, they are everywhere in the CBD. And again, I say I'd rather have them making an honest living than either begging or turning to criminality. That's the one issue. And the second issue, and I don't know if you're the right person to talk about this, but JMPD harassing those traders, confiscating their goods. For goodness sake, these are innocent, poor people trying to make a living. Leave them be, allow them to eke out a living. If you believe that they are creating an issue around litter or whatever, address that, but don't confiscate their goods. They've worked hard for, trying to sell those goods and put some bread on the table. If you can raise it, I'd be very, very grateful. And we can, keep this aside for a future a discussion maybe next week sometime, inshallah, but it is something that needs to be addressed. So how do we move forward then? Is it working regarding the hawkers being responsible and trying to get rid of their litter in a responsible manner?
Julie G, it is. We have started something in this term of office. We've passed the informal traders policy so that the Department of Economic Development can start fast tracking the licensing for these hawkers on the street and demarcations of them. That was something that was lacking. We started the process last year. When we got kicked out, we couldn't continue, but when we came back now, we have concluded that process. So at least then we won't have that harassment from JMPD. I've also spoken to DD Jaka, who has informed me that they have zero tolerance for JMPD officers who do things illegally just because it's Christmas now and they also want to get some extra funds. So that is one of the things that DD Jaka said he will personally take responsibility for, and we can inform him when these things are happening and where it's happening in the inner city. With regards to the cleanliness, yes, education is key, and I think that's where political will comes in. Pick It Up is willing to go out and speak to traders and inform them and educate them, as long as the councillors come on board to actually say, we will create the environment safe enough for you to come in. And that's where MMC Sun has already partnered with some businesses, as well as the traders and even the taxi association, in coming on board to start cleaning up the inner city together with Pick It Up. So that is one of the good news stories for December, and we hope to see that actually be fulfilled so that we can have a cleaner city during this festive season.
I think going forward, my final comments, and I'd like you perhaps to take it up with the powers that be. I understand that Singapore is one of the cleanest cities in the world. Japan follows closely thereafter, and I think there are other examples of clean cities. Why do our politicians or councillors not go and pay them a visit to see what is it that they're doing, that they manage to get it right, and come back to South Africa and replicate it here? Those are the type of visits they need to undertake, and not reinvent the wheel here in South Africa. People are getting it right in other countries. If we copy, their protocols, we will get it right here as well.
Julia, I agree with you 100%. I will pass it on to MMC Sun in terms of a visit to those countries, as well as the committee on environment and infrastructure. They also need to pay a visit, because they would then need to look at the different policies in place to ensure that you have a cleaner city. And I think one of the main things that will come out of that is education and civic pride. That is
Absolutely.
something that we need to continue pushing, because if people want a clean environment, they will clean up in front of them. You and I know, we grew up where if we dropped a piece of paper in front of our yard, we will get the hiding of from help from our
Absolutely.
parents and go and clean up the entire street, not just in front of our
Absolutely.
house. So I
Sure,
think
sure.
that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about civic pride, that we need to take responsibility for the areas that we work in or live in, so that we and our children have a cleaner environment.
Inshallah, Amin. Keep up the good work, inshallah. And like I said, we will hook up with you again sometime soon. Mohammed Alex Christians. Do I still refer to you as a counselor, though?
Gee, I'm still a counselor.
Oh, okay. Counselor Mohammed Alex Christians talking to us about the issue regarding illegal dumping, not only in Fordsburg and Mayfair, but all around this beautiful city of gold, which, if we don't address their problem now, it's going to certainly be known as the city of trash. Please, God, it doesn't come to that. Go well. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Inshallah. And Jazakallah for having me, Julie. And thank you to your listeners. Assalamu
Absolutely.
alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. 12 after 9 exactly. We're going to take an ad break, and when we come back, we go straight into the news with our news correspondent Zahid Jadwid, inshallah. Do stay with us. This is News and Views on Salam Media.